entertainment, health, world news, and lots more. Click on the live link and see the news in real time. Do you want to watch the latest video of the day? It's just a click away. Friend us on Facebook, YouTube, follow us on Twitter, Google+, participate in Channels TV poll and share your comments. It's a website you can talk to. Your voice will be heard. ChannelsTV.com. The news at your fingertips.
Hello there and welcome to the world today on Channels Television. I'm Cynthia Are. We start off in Hong Kong. Now, as protesters continue to defy calls to return to their homes, the Hong Kong leader is also continuing to urge the pro-democracy protesters to stop their campaign immediately as huge crowds continue to bring parts of the territory to a standstill. They still want the protesters What the protesters want is for Beijing to give Hong Kong a free vote for its next leader, and that's something which Beijing has rejected.
Taiwan's main opposition party, the Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, urged authorities in Hong Kong and Beijing to show restraint with pro-democracy protesters on Tuesday, September 30.
Fundamental rights, such as the freedom of assembly and freedom of expression, should be protected. The DPP calls for both the Hong Kong and Chinese governments to exercise self-restraint in dispersing the peaceful demonstrations taking place. We ask that they listen with diligence and respond positively to the views that have been expressed.
Hong Kong riot police shot pepper spray and tear gas at protesters at the weekend, but withdrew on Monday, September 29, to ease tension as the ranks of demonstrators swelled. The protesters, mostly students, are demanding full democracy and have called on the city's leader, Leung Chun-ying, to step down after Beijing announced on August 31 that free elections for Hong Kong's leader, known as the chief executive, will be ruled out in 2017. China rules Hong Kong under a one-country, two-systems formula that accords the former British colony a degree of autonomy and freedoms not enjoyed in mainland China, with universal suffrage set as an eventual goal. Taiwan has ruled itself since Chinese nationalists fled there after being defeated by mainland communists in a civil war in 1949. China has never renounced the use of force to take back what it regards as a renegade province, particularly should Taiwan make moves towards declaring official independence. Taiwan's President Ma Ying-jeou also called on China to adopt a peaceful and cautious approach in handling pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong.
Now, just when it looked as though the sanctions against Russia would be eased, the EU has decided to keep them, judging that Ukraine's peace deal is not fully effective. Ironically, EU ambassadors who met today noted some encouraging developments since the 5th of September ceasefire, which was agreed upon, but it was pointed out that other parts of the peace deal would need to be properly implemented. The current sanctions target senior Russian officials as well as Russia's oil industry, defense firms, and banks. Now, still talking Ukraine, despite the truce deal signed, officials in the eastern part of the country have confirmed that artillery is pounding the Donetsk airport area, where Ukrainian troops are resisting pro-Russian separatists. This is a clear violation of the ceasefire agreement, which has been holding in most areas. The rebels were said to have fired rockets at Ukrainian positions at the airport, but the rebels say they fired back in response to mortar fire. The Popasna attack killed several people and wounded others. In Luhansk, regional governor also said that the towns lie in Ukrainians-held territory, which is west of Luhansk, and that's a city held by pro-Russian separatists. For more concerning the Russia and Ukraine situation, I'm now being joined live from London by the Voice of America's Al Pessin, and he'll be telling us more on what's happening. Al, thank you so much for joining us on The World Today. I hope you can hear me.
I can, Cynthia. Good to be with you.
Okay, Al, thank you. I just want to confirm that, to make sure that you could hear me. Now, you were in Ukraine last week Tuesday specifically. Are you surprised by any of these reports talking about what's happening in the eastern part of the country?
No, I'm not surprised. What we found was that the ceasefire was holding in most areas, but there were violations every day. And I think since I left, the number of violations have gone down. Agreed to pull their troops back 15 kilometers from the ceasefire line. So the situation has improved, but the Donetsk airport, which you mentioned, is particularly volatile area. The two forces are quite close together. The government holds the airport, which of course is a very strategic place to hold, and the rebels would really like to get a hold of it.
But Al, any idea why this ceasefire deal isn't necessarily holding up as well as was probably anticipated?
Well, the ceasefire exists because it was in both sides' interests to have a ceasefire, and the ceasefire is not perfect because, especially I would say, the pro-Russian side finds it in their interest to try to gain some territory if they can and to keep this situation unstable, which keeps pressure on the Ukrainian government. And that's precisely, I think, why the Ukrainian government went for the ceasefire. Number one, because they realized, of course, they couldn't beat the separatists if Russian troops and Russian artillery were going to be fighting on the separatist side. But also, I think, importantly, because President Poroshenko wants this problem to go away. And if it won't go away, at least to calm down, to quiet down, so that he can pursue the rest of his agenda for Ukraine, fighting corruption, economic development, moving the country economically and politically closer to the European Union, and holding peaceful parliamentary elections next month to the extent possible.
Now, Al, now that the EU has decided to maintain those sanctions against Russia, what implication might this have, or what impact might this have on the economy as well as the political aspect as regards Russia that it already hasn't?
Well, you're quite right. It has both economic and political impacts and implications. Economically, it's a relatively slow process, although some analysts say that it's really already cost Russia billions and billions of dollars worth of trade and other sorts of income, banking income, interest, increased interest costs for Russian banks that borrow internationally. So it's already having some impact, and that impact will only grow over time. Politically, the West hopes that it will bring more pressure on President Putin from his political allies and his business allies who will be affected by these sanctions, pressure on him to let the situation in eastern Ukraine calm down, to withdraw his forces, and apparently has withdrawn at least some of his forces from eastern Ukraine. So the